So in my earlier discussion with Blume Venture Partners, they were talking about how they want to have the portfolio companies stand on the shoulder of the giants. And listening to what Draper talked about, we are somewhere in a similar mode where we are like horizontal players across the ecosystem. Like for us, we could as well be running like a VC firm or like an accelerator, but we have chose to contribute more to the existing players. We are networking with the VCs, incubators, accelerators, and our sole aim is to make you guys successful. And there were some nods and murmurs and excitement when he talked about discount deals. You can of course avail all these credits from that portal, but you guys are so special that you've got a special hotline access to us. So how many of you are using AWS here? You get extra credits if you raise your hand. How many of you want to save your costs on AWS? Not too many. Okay, that's surprising. You're going to hurt my KPI. But let's see. Our analysis shows 78% of Blume portfolio is using AWS platform. Now, these are some of those names, and assuming all of you mostly are Blume Ventures company, this is not referenceable to the extent of sharing it outside, but probably good for this room. Now, what we did, just to make it very specific and give you some pointers on how to optimize your cloud spend or the whole AWS services on the platform, we did some plotting of the charts. Now, what you see here is, now all these bubbles are individual companies. And the size of the bubble somewhere denotes the size of the AWS billing. On your y-axis, you see the compute peak utilization. So in the last 30 days, what was the peak CPU utilization that you reached, right? And in the x-axis, you have what was the average compute utilization. Now, if you think about it, cloud main essence is that you can use horizontal scaling, by which you don't have to provision your capacity of the servers and all to the worst expected demand. Right? Because when you used to do that in the traditional world, there was a lot of underutilized servers and storage capacity. With cloud, you are actually able to scale as the demand grows. And that's where you should ideally be reaching a lot more levels of utilization, and that's where the savings are. So to read this in another way, in fact, if you see the horizontal axis is only till 30%. So there's a lot of stretch that's still not covered. Average utilization still is max reaching to like 30%. Average of average utilization is just 7.4%. So you're still a lot underutilized. That's where the savings lie. Now, if we were to further segregate this map, we have three kind of profiles for you. If you start from the bottom, cloud neutral are those sort of startups which are hosting on AWS in the traditional style, like thinking of cloud just for compute or for storage needs. But then cloud native are the ones who are talking about auto scaling, going the horizontal scaling route. And then there are those cloud aggressive, real smart guys who are not just optimizing the spends by using auto scaling and all, but also leveraging those managed services, which will help you also on the business side, right? So for example, we have services for doing your big data analytics. We have services for just streaming analytics and a lot of different modes like that. Now, if you have to segregate the original chart into all these three different buckets, you would see the default portfolio falls under the cloud neutral category, where again, you would see here the average utilization percentage is 6.2. So most of you, if you're not thinking about cloud in terms of leveraging its capacity or services, would just host your website on our compute or on storage and would just end up somewhere here. So imagine you're paying roughly, you have 94% of savings that you could do on your bills. Cloud native, you'd see some of those bubbles going towards the right is when you adopt auto scaling, right? Then you go into the cloud native category, and the compute peak utilization, at least for those kind of instances, goes up. Now, there are certain caveats here. So you might be a very IO intensive workload or memory intensive workload. So we have not tried mapping that, but this just gives you a sense of scope of utilization that you can get. Now, I'm not going to talk about how you can get from like cloud neutral to cloud native, but just call out some case studies. So Craftsvilla, they worked with us very closely. They wanted to optimize the cloud spend, and their challenge was that they were running a fast-growing business. And it so happens with most of the fast-growing businesses that technology infrastructure comes like somewhere at the bottom of their priorities. Now, they were not able to get to some of those basic cost-saving implementations. And we worked with them literally in like 2 days in a warfare mode. We helped them do some optimization, which helped them drop their AWS bills by 30% in just 2 months. And some of the things that they did was, so they migrated from the traditional style of hosting on NFS storage to S3. They implemented auto-scaling, and then they got AWS config service for better monitoring of their provisions, services, and storage devices. The other one is Capillary. Now, this exemplifies startups which are operating at massive scale. There is this other notion that it's good to get on the cloud when you're small, but as you grow big, it's even more difficult to manage your costs. And this is exactly where we wanted to break that perception. Capillary is, as you know, a very advanced stage startup. And even at that level, we were able to get their bills on AWS down by 30% in an extended period of 5 months. But then using some of those advanced services which you talked about, like EMR, Elasticache. In fact, these guys went about building their own custom tool and then monitoring the dashboard and saving cost basis that. The other very interesting thing that they did was they migrated from old generation instances to new generation instances. And that also happens when you're hosting on a public cloud like AWS. The beauty there is that we are constantly reiterating our kind of instances, and with the new instances, we not only give you better performance, but also help you save cost. So for example, if you look at, there is M3 versus M1 instance, M3 provides a lot more savings, but almost 20% improved performance. Now, there's this third kind of category, which is where we hope to see most of you next time, which is leveraging all those high-end services. The interesting note here is that these should be scattered to the extreme right. But while you're using some of the services, they are still low on the average utilization, which is kind of an anomaly, but at least they're making an attempt and they're leveraging really business differentiating services on AWS. Nearby is a classic example of that. They use microservices and they have adopted Dockers on AWS. And with that, they were not only able to get their 350 instances down to 120 instances in 4 weeks, which is like massive cost savings, but they were also able to become a lot more agile and flexible to experiment a lot more different technologies and offerings for their customers. Now, I'm going to keep it very crisp for now. This is just a high-level set of pointers. In terms of the takeaways, you need to just realize that there is a lot more money on the table that you're leaving. Come talk to us, help us meet our KRAs, KPIs. We want to help you save costs. We have a team dedicated to work with you on the cost optimization and the architecture reviews. You have to think within your tech team's mandate that how do you get from neutral to native to aggressive, and think about leveraging those application or managed services as you get towards the aggressive side of the portfolio. Right? And with that, one another interesting sort of an announcement is that we are upping our credits offer to all the Blume portfolio. But this would be going forward. If you've not availed the credits yet, maybe you could still qualify. Earlier it was like $5,000 credits for all Blume portfolio. Now we will be offering up to $100,000 credits. Right? So can we have a round of applause for that? Thank you. I give you 4 minutes of your life back.
So if you guys have any questions,
Okay. Yeah. So there are some criteria around that. Always TNC applies. So we will mail out the exact details, and then if you are eligible, why not? But this is a common thing. There is like free is never free enough. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So we have a team, like different kind of functions within the team. One is the solution architect team, which works closely on the tech side. And the simplest thing that we do with any startup who's keen to optimize their services is do an architecture review. So we would go deep dive into your requirements, what your stack is, and then we'll tell you. So you have like hotline access to us through Blume. You have my coordinates, which is there in the first slide. And we have like a couple of my colleagues also here. So we can catch up offline also. Just a matter of emailing us and then we'll work with you. Yeah. So the the major criteria that could probably be the deciding factor whether you're eligible or not is that we have our validity date of the credits starting with the funding month. So if you were funded by Bloom, or for that matter, we work with other VCs and all, within the last year or so, then you might still have that window of availing the benefits. Okay, if you've not availed previously. If you've availed and if it was lesser than what we offered, then you can also get top up to the maximum eligible value for you. All right. Cheers, guys. Thank you.